Hello everybody, so I'm just going to start this off by saying that if you were to only watch one of my videos all the way through, I kind of think it should be this video, because we're going to be talking about the gender critical movement and how the gender critical movement can achieve the ultimate goal, which is changing people's minds on this topic. That's kind of the reason I do what I do, and I would probably imagine if you're involved in the gender critical movement, then yeah, changing people's minds is something you're very much aware we need to do. So I'm going to be talking about that, and I'm also going to be making a brief kind of appeal about some stuff I'm doing, which I think is very related to this topic. So that's why I would like it if you watch the video all the way through. And I want to start off with an interesting question. Who has done the most to help and advantage the gender critical movement? I'll give you a brief second to think about it, although I'm not expecting that what I say will be a surprise or particularly controversial. It's J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling has done more than anybody else to make it so that this is a discussion people are having, this is something people are thinking about, and I think ultimately we are now, what I'm doing, what again you're probably interested in doing if you're watching this, has become so much easier and more kind of productive now that J.K. Rowling has come out and expressed explicit support for the gender critical, although I don't know if she's ever used that term, but functionally she's expressed support for the gender critical movement. Now, this is interesting though, because J.K. Rowling is not some fantastic feminist theorist. This is not a topic that she is a massive academic in or anything like that. And she's also not, as far as I know, been somebody who's evidenced herself to be a particularly fantastic debater on this topic, nor somebody who's really advancing the kind of intellectual discourse around this stuff. She tweets, and of course what she tweets is correct, usually, and I would agree with it. If, for example, there was going to be a debate on gender identity, J.K. Rowling would not be that high on my shortlist of people who I would want to be representing the gender critical movement. This isn't to say J.K. Rowling is, I would imagine particularly terrible at, advancing the kind of intellectual case for the gender critical movement, but just that there are other people higher up on that list. Kathleen Stock, plenty of kind of YouTubers, Exolansic, people like that, who I think have argued this case and, who I would actually go to as a resource to learn more and understand more. So why has J.K. Rowling been the single biggest positive influence for the gender critical movement? Well, because she's got people talking about these ideas. She's brought these ideas to the forefront. And as sad as it is to say or realize, even with all of these other people who I think intellectually make a really good case for the gender critical movement, and I think are, basically I would kind of refer to them as theorists of these, this kind of critical understanding of so-called trans identity. Even though those people have done so much and I respect them a lot, if it weren't for J.K. Rowling with her huge amount of exposure, her huge platform, just saying, oh yeah, the gender critical movement is correct, or, basically expressing agreement with it, I think that we would be in a pretty rubbish situation. Even when we could have all the arguments on our side, even when we could have lots of very smart people making very good points, it doesn't really achieve anything compared to actually just any person who's got a decent platform just saying, yeah, trans identity, there are issues with it, and issues of trans activism, which is of course what J.K. Rowling did. Graham Linehan, I saw somebody post something that he'd written, which was basically kind of lamenting the fact that you just can't get people to care about this topic. It was basically saying, like, I've tried everything to get people to care about this topic, but, like whether it's kids being trans, whether it's the, lesbians being expected to have sex with biological males, whatever it is, I've tried all of these things which you would think should be obvious things that would just show how nonsense this trans identity is and how harmful the trans activism movement is, and yet people just don't care. That's what Graham Linehan was basically saying. And I find this interesting in light of the fact that I just said J.K. Rowling has done the most to make people aware of this topic, which is what Graham Linehan apparently wants to do, make people aware of this topic. And how has J.K. Rowling done that? Well, she's done it by having written Harry Potter. Like, that's what she did that meant that she has now got a platform where she can make people care about this topic because people care about J.K. Rowling, not because they care about her. Like, let's be clear. If J.K. Rowling had gone a different path where she'd decided to, like study some kind of sociological degree and become like the foremost academic on trans identity, and then come out and started saying all of these opinions, nobody would care. The reason that people care about what J.K. Rowling's saying, counterintuitively, is not because she is some person who's like a real expert on this topic who has really made an effort to commit herself to this discourse entirely, but rather because she wrote Harry Potter. And this is interesting because, of course, Graham Linehan is, and more so was, a comedy writer. And his comedy is good. Father Ted, very funny show. The IT Crowd, very funny show. Very funny guy. And I will always watch those shows and enjoy them. And if they're on, if I'm flicking through the channels and one of those two shows is on, I will watch them because they are very, very funny. And in that sense, of course, it does mean that when Graham Linehan first came out and started talking about this trans identity stuff, and it kind of created on a much smaller scale what's basically happened now with J.K. Rowling, which is that people are being forced to confront this issue. And the reason they're being forced to confront this issue is because people who they like are talking about it. People like J.K. Rowling because they like Harry Potter. And, if they read Harry Potter and they know it's J.K. Rowling's words, and they have just from that an appreciation for J.K. Rowling. So at that point, when J.K. Rowling then comes out and gives any opinion, but especially a controversial opinion, they then have to, this hypothetical Harry Potter fan, then has to ask themselves, how do I feel about what J.K. Rowling has said? Because they need to consider that when they're thinking about, well, how do I now feel about Harry Potter? How do I feel about J.K. Rowling as a writer? Because they are already fans of this content by J.K. Rowling, now that J.K. Rowling has come out and given this statement, they need to think, how does that make me feel about J.K. Rowling? And by extension, they actually have to ask themselves, how do I feel about what J.K. Rowling has said? And this is something which I think also kind of happened with Graham Linehan, where basically people loved the IT Crowd, people loved Father Ted. So when Graham Linehan came out and said all of this stuff, started kind of talking about trans identity, people had to say, well, how do I feel about that? And lots of people, who, and admittedly, lots of people probably don't even know those TV shows, never mind knowing specifically who wrote them, never mind knowing what opinions have then been expressed by the person who wrote them. But the people who did know had to ask themselves that question now. How do I feel about the fact that Graham Linehan, who I like because I like the stuff he's done, also said these things? And by extension, you have to think about the things he said. And that's why I think ultimately what Graham Linehan needed to do in order to, because obviously Graham Linehan is apparently now talking about people not caring about this topic as much as he would like them to, is Graham Linehan needed to keep writing comedy. Now, according to Graham Linehan, he was like so thoroughly cancelled that it has been literally impossible. He apparently has a TV show idea, which he wants to do, but there's nobody who will agree to work with him and agree to help him produce this TV show, which I find surprising. I find it surprising that a talented writer who has produced 2 classics of British comedy is entirely unable to find any avenue to make this content. I just find that hard to believe, but I can't really say either way. But the thing is that either way, the best thing Graham Linehan could do would be to produce more comedic TV shows. Because if those comedic TV shows were really good, then just normal people who are the exact kind of people that Graham Linehan is upset aren't actually engaging with this topic and talking about this topic would then start saying, oh, you know what, I really like that new Graham Linehan TV show. It's fantastic. It's really funny. He's still got it. It's really, really great show. And then the trans activists, and this is the key thing, the trans activists will force people to think about this topic. They will basically do our job for us. Like, if gender critical people are out there building fan bases independent of their gender critical points of view, then the trans activists will actually do the job of forcing people to think about their gender critical points of view for us. Because they will then say, oh, if there's a trans activist in any friend group and they're all saying, oh, you've seen the new Graham Linehan comedy? Oh, it's very funny. Or maybe they won't even know it's Graham Linehan comedy, so it's very funny. And then someone will say, oh, but the guy who wrote that, he's a real transphobe. He's a horrible person. Yeah, he's a massive bigot. And then lots of people who then hear that, all they thought was, oh, this is a good show. But now they're being forced to think about, well, okay, how do I feel about the fact Graham Linehan said this stuff? And therefore they have to think, what did Graham Linehan say? And therefore some people are going to say, you know what, actually, I think what he said wasn't that bad. Or even that they actively agree with it. And of course, that's exactly what's happened with J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling didn't actually force anybody to think about her gender critical points of view. J.K. Rowling hasn't been going out there on TV or whatever, or anywhere else, being like, people need to think about my gender critical points of view. Instead, all J.K. Rowling has done is kind of obviously on her Twitter, but basically on her own private Twitter, just gone, hey, or her own personal Twitter, just gone, hey, I have some opinions about the gender critical stuff, and just put those viewpoints out there. And actually, in terms of forcing people or really kind of motivating people to think about that has all been done by the trans activists. Because now when somebody says, oh, I like Harry Potter, it's the trans activists who will be there going, yeah, but how do we reconcile liking Harry Potter with J.K. Rowling's views? And now everybody has to think about, well, not everybody, but people who are big fans of Harry Potter, and a lot of people are having to think about this issue. And therefore, obviously, does that mean that they're going to all suddenly be like, oh yeah, let's completely agree with J.K. Rowling? No, obviously not. But at least some of them will, and actually a significant number will. And I know people personally who were just the kind of people who didn't care about this topic at all, and now they're actually on my side. When I talk about trans identity, they agree with what I say, and they don't agree with what I say because of me having made an argument for it. Although obviously I will try to actually, if I end up talking about it, say, and here's one reason why I think it's nonsense, try to actually throw out some reasons why I think it's nonsense. But the main reason they would agree with it is because J.K. Rowling said basically a criticism of trans identity, and now they were then forced to think about what she said, and they came to the conclusion, oh yeah, what she said wasn't that bad. Or again, what she said, they even just totally agree with it. And that is a big thing. And again, it wasn't actually, to be honest, the gender critical people who were, like I say, pushing forward for, you've got to think about what J.K. Rowling said, you've got to engage with her gender critical points of view. It was the trans activists who were doing all of that. And that's how powerful this is. And I would honestly go so far as to say that the biggest setback for the gender critical movement right now is the poor quality of the Fantastic Beasts films. Because, the issue is that, of course, that just makes it much easier for people to say that, to basically detach Harry Potter from what J.K. Rowling is currently believing now and currently talking about now. Whereas conversely, imagine if the Fantastic Beasts films were really great, universally critically praised, because they were actually good instead of what they are, and they've been written by J.K. Rowling, and that would just further force people to be like, oh wait, J.K. Rowling and the Wizarding World franchise is still this incredibly relevant thing, and they would still have to think about it instead of what's happened right now, which is kind of disappointing, which is that people seem to actually be arguing, and of course this is complete nonsense, that the Wizarding World franchise is becoming less relevant, and kind of that's evidenced by the Fantastic Beasts movies basically tanking at the box office. And this is all because of J.K. Rowling's views on gender identity, which I don't think is true at all. So, I think that actually the reality is that if the films were really good, or at least even slightly good, and people actually enjoyed them and were like, oh yeah, I can't wait for Fantastic Beasts 4, then you'd have people being like, oh yeah, I can't wait either, and it would be in the conversation. And then the trans activists would of course be there going, well, if you like Fantastic Beasts, you're going to have to look at what J.K. Rowling said, with the expectation that therefore they can turn people away from it. But of course what they're actually doing is turning people directly towards looking at gender critical points of view, which is precisely what I want. I wish that every single TRA could be out there turning, saying, everybody, look at what King Critical's doing. Look at this. Everybody look and have an opinion about this. I'd be like, yes, please, thank you. That would be awesome. So that's definitely not a bad thing at all. And that's the thing which has helped, like I say, when people are making content which appeals to people beyond just the kind of relatively small number of people who have some kind of investment in this topic, which right now seems to be a kind of niche topic about women's sex-based rights in relation to trans identity. So the reason why J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan have been important to the success of the gender critical movement is because they have a claim to fame that is entirely independent of their gender critical points of view, which works to bring people in. Because otherwise, if you just have somebody who just talks about the gender critical movement, then the only reason anybody's going to listen to them or talk to them or care about what they're saying is if they also have some interest in that topic. But conversely, you can bring somebody in because if somebody likes good comedy or likes the Harry Potter franchise, then they might therefore end up engaging with people or engaging with the content of people who have gender critical points of view. But actually, there is another obvious option here or another kind of even greater opportunity to exploit here, because the Harry Potter franchise and Father Ted and the IT crowd, these are things which can actually be separated from their creators to some degree. It's not so hard. I'm not surprised that a lot of people can like both the content of Graham Linehan and J.K. Rowling enthusiastically and still basically perhaps just entirely avoid having an opinion on their views about trans identity. And the reason for that is because there is not really a direct attachment to or a direct connection between the content being produced by these people and their personalities. And this is why I'm talking on YouTube, because YouTube, there is a much greater association between the content being produced and the personalities producing that content. And that's why I think what needs to happen for there to be more success with this topic is YouTubers who are gender critical to actually, rather than contributing, I mean, they can, of course, contribute to gender critical discourse, but also, if they can, do something else as well. And we, as gender critical YouTubers, should support whatever anybody else is doing. So there's one obvious example, and it's the only example I'm currently aware of, which is Kat Cattinson, who's a detrans YouTuber who I've had on my channel before. She has a kind of music channel, a channel where she does music. And it's not music, it's not like turf carols or, some kind of music about gender identity. No, it's just music that, I've actually listened to it kind of just casually while going about my day, vibing to it. And it's just kind of commercially viable, entertaining music. And therefore, I'm subscribed to the channel. I like the stuff. And that's what I think, so I'll leave a link to that in the comments below, or rather in the description below, because people should be checking out that. Because again, here's the thing. If Kat Cattinson, her YouTube channel where she talks about gender critical ideas, if that takes off, that's great. Of course it's great. But it will only probably appeal to people who already have an interest in this whole gender identity discussion. But if her music channel took off, that could appeal to all sorts of people who would then be like, oh, this Kat Cattinson person, I really like her music. And then you find out, oh wait, she talks about this other stuff too. And you now want to know what she's talking about, not because you have a massive interest in this, very niche topic around gender identity, but because you now like her as a personality. And indeed, I would love to see, and I'm kind of, I guess, pledging to try to support as much as I can, gender critical YouTubers who want to do other stuff, whether it's like travel vlogs or, I don't know, like ASMR, whatever it is. If they can do that and be successful at that, then that will bring in way more people who will be like, oh, I like this personality. And because I like this personality that's displayed on this YouTube channel, which is about this, very kind of main, thing with mainstream appeal, I'm actually now interested in what they have to say about this trans identity thing, because, everywhere I go, nobody's really talking about this topic. It's just, just accepted that trans women are women, whatever else. So let me see what this person has to say. Let me see what this D-trans person has to say. Let me see what this gay person or LGB person has to say, where they think that actually, that transing away the gay is wrong. And they will learn all of this stuff and hear all of this stuff, not because people are just talking about trans identity kind of just immutably and just being like, oh, they're talking about trans identity all the time. And yeah, the reality is that's not going to appeal to people who just like, well, I don't really care about that topic. Another example I want to give is that my fiance recently said that she was interested in setting up a vlog channel where she would just do, or, kind of a YouTube channel where she would just do kind of like vloggy stuff. Just, casual, whatever, day in the life, vloggy stuff. And also she was over here in the UK recently, of course, as you maybe saw in the Q&A. And we went on some day trips and we filmed the day trips. We filmed the things we were doing. And that is right there, potentially, content. So basically, yeah, she was saying all of that. And I say all power to her. I mean, certainly when I was first starting YouTube, it would have been nice if I had if I was engaged to somebody who had 6,000 subscribers. And yeah, obviously, if she does do that, I'm sure you can imagine that I would be promoting her quite a lot. I'd be going, hey, my fiance has a YouTube channel. You should all go check it out. Yeah, I would definitely do that. But the other thing is, obviously, I would just do that because it would be a nice thing to do for the woman I love. But the other thing about it is it would have some potential advantage for the gender critical movement, because let's suppose hypothetically, and I want to stress, of course, that there are no delusions of grandeur here or anything like that. It's, of course, very unlikely that anybody's going to start a YouTube channel, a vlog channel, anybody's going to try to make it in YouTube, doing especially one of these things where it's an incredibly oversaturated market, like, just casual day in the life vlogging, and get just instant huge success. But for the sake of the hypothetical, imagine if somehow, just algorithm gets lucky, one of these videos just suddenly goes viral, and we're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, unlikely, but yeah, possible, undeniably possible, millions of subscribers. That would do a huge amount for the gender critical movement, because while, of course, my fiance's content would be, she doesn't really talk about this issue that much, although she does agree with me on the topic, would just be casual stuff, like just, whatever, day in the life kind of vlogs, traveling, just, I can't fully know exactly what it's going to be about, because she kind of wasn't really sure. She was just like, oh, it's just the thing she wanted to do. It would undoubtedly, I think, crop up from it being like, day in the life vlogs and us being engaged, that I would appear in the videos. And that eventually people would find out, oh, actually, I talk about trans identity stuff loads. And that would create a controversy where people would be like, oh, here's a YouTuber who I like their content. People who otherwise, wouldn't have thought about this topic at all. They're like, oh, I like this YouTuber's content, but now I find out she's engaged to, or perhaps even at that point married to, a YouTuber who talks about trans identity. And they would therefore want to know, well, this is a drama, a controversy about a personality I'm interested in. I want to find out about it. And how are they going to find out about it? Well, chances are they will find out about it by seeing some of what I've said. So while right now I'm sat here talking about this topic, and most people probably who would otherwise, be watching kind of your standard kind of day in the life vlogs don't really care about what I'm talking about, they would if, like I say, that scenario actually played out. And that's just an example of how I think having other YouTube channels could lead to success for bringing people round to taking the gender critical movement seriously. Now, here's where I make my appeal. I want to start a film review channel called KC Reviews. And I'm going to leave a link to it in the comments because I want you to check out the first video I've uploaded, which I will have uploaded when I upload this video. And I want you to like that video. I want you to comment. I want you to subscribe. I want you to do all of the algorithm things. And the main reason for this is because this video would have, this channel would have way more appeal and way more reach. People like film reviews. People like watching videos about like Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. These are things people find interesting. More interesting, it has to be said, than people talking about trans identity. And the thing is, the reason why I say, go over there and do all of the algorithm stuff is, of course, because I want that video to be helped by the algorithm. So I would even say right now, go there and do all of the algorithm stuff. Because the thing is, sometimes I will get people commenting on this channel saying, I'm commenting for the algorithm. And you guys are really good at that. You're really good at the algorithm. And I can tell you're good at it because now one of the most common comments I get is people saying, why was this in my recommendations? And the thing is, that's kind of a bittersweet thing, right? Because on the one hand, it shows that clearly a lot of people must be getting this video, or not this video, but my videos in general and this channel recommended to them. They must be, because just the number of people talking about the fact these videos were in their recommendations, that's great. But the kind of bitter aspect to it is that they're saying, why was this video in my recommendations? And it's pretty clear, and obviously, it's often variations of that kind of comment, and sometimes they'll be explicit about this, but sometimes it's just implied, that they're thinking, why is this video in my recommendations? I don't care about this topic. Like, they're saying, why is this video in my recommendations? I don't care about this. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because, like, I would imagine, the number of people who wants to watch response videos about trans identity is very small compared to the number of people who just have an interest in films and like watching people talk about films. And, I personally, I'm always looking to add to the kind of channels I can watch that talk about films, because I find film analysis really interesting. A lot of time when I'm editing or whatever else, or doing something where I can kind of just listen to something in the background, I will be listening to film reviews. Because the reality is, and I guess part of it is because a lot of the kind of gender critical content I used to listen to has now been banned, which is a whole other thing which I need to mention briefly in a minute. But the key point right away is that obviously a YouTube channel about film reviews would have way more reach. And I want to kind of give you an example to show how I think this would be a massive benefit to the gender critical movement. Like, the kind of thing is, I think that my film review channel could do more to help the gender critical movement than this channel would. And the reason why is because the film review channel would probably get more subscribers. I mean, here's kind of the obvious point. I have 6K subscribers now. I recently hit 6K and I'm very appreciative of that. The thing is, 6K for a gender critical channel is big. 6K for a film review channel is small. Like, if tomorrow I had 6,000 subscribers on my film review channel, my thought would be, that's a start. Like, because the reality is that film review channels get up to the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of subscribers. So there's this massive, significantly more reach. And of course, that means that once you've got a bigger reach, eventually people who, like I say, like your personality, like what you're putting into these film reviews, would eventually think, oh, and also this person has these views about trans identity too. Well, I kind of want to know what it is they're saying about this because I like what they're saying about this other stuff. So let me look at that. And again, obviously, I wouldn't expect them to suddenly be like, oh, now I want to watch this person talk about trans identity for several hours every single week, responding to all of these videos. I wouldn't expect that. But I would expect that they'd at least think, oh, you know what, actually, I agree with this person. And if we have enough people thinking that they agree with us, we don't need every single person to become like incredibly involved in this movement and engaging in all of the kind of discourse and everything else. We just need enough people to agree with us. I think that would be achieved. And the example I want to give is there's a YouTuber called Jenny Nicholson. And Jenny Nicholson is a film reviewer who puts a lot of her, and also kind of a media reviewer in general, who puts a lot of her own personality into her videos. And it would be fair to say that every single person who likes her content almost certainly likes her personality too. Now, as it happens, she has come out and basically explicitly said that she affirms trans identity, which is not really surprising because she is a kind of privileged girl from, like young privileged girl from California, which is probably, I guess, like peak, affirming trans identity territory. But imagine if for some reason, for whatever reason, perhaps when she was younger, she just happened to stumble upon a Magdalene Burns video and agreed with it or something else. Jenny Nicholson, who has, I think, like 600k subscribers. So 100 times more subscribers than I do on my main channel, on this channel right now. But she had 600k subscribers, and she came out and said, that actually she agrees with J.K. Rowling. She does think that there are areas where trans identity goes too far or trans activism goes too far. Bear in mind that, yeah, like I say, a huge number of her subscribers like her for her personality. Now, the reality is that, yes, some people might then decide actually that they can't support her anymore. Some people might decide not to care, but quite a large number of people I think will be like, oh wait, so she has these, this person who I like has these opinions on trans identity. Well, let me look into why she believes this. And they'd be much more likely to take those ideas seriously. And I think as soon as you look at the gender critical movement, willing to give it an iota of charity in terms of like how you understand it rather than just being immediately like, I'm going to just view it in the most negative light possible. As soon as you look at it in a remotely kind of fair perspective, you will immediately recognize that the arguments are on our side. So that would be a huge thing. And yeah, to be honest, if there was like one person who I could make be gender critical, Jenny Nicholson might be quite high up that list. Somebody who has a very big audience, who likes, and it could be, to be honest, maybe it would just be some other vlogger, like for example Zoella, or I don't know. I don't really know much about the whole vlogging thing, but basically somebody who has a very large audience and essentially would just be like, oh yeah, I agree with the gender critical point of view. And that would make people go, oh wait, apparently there's this big controversy around the gender critical point of view, which relates to this YouTuber I really like. Let me check them out. So obviously the reason I was talking about Jenny Nicholson specifically is because she is a film reviewer. And I'm not suggesting that I would put anything like as much of my personality into my film reviews or anything like that. But I still think it's probable that if the channel took off, and again, I realize that's not guaranteed, this is something I'm doing because I would really like it to happen, and therefore I'm like, well, I might as well give it a shot. If that happened, then it would reach, I think, enough, if it were reaching enough people, then a lot of those people would be like, oh, I like what this guy has to say about Star Wars or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, so it obviously only naturally extends that I would have to see what he has to say about trans identity. And again, do I think they would check out every single video I make on trans identity? Probably not. Probably that's not their biggest interest. But as long as they say, you know what, I can see what this guy's saying and I can see why this guy believes these things and he has a good point, that is a massive victory, and it's a victory that right now I am not currently winning. So, or not currently achieving. So I want to talk about why I want to do this. So, point one is that this channel right here is stagnating. And that's just the reality of the situation. So just under a year and a half ago, I went from having less than 1,000 subscribers to I made the kind of some responses to ContraPoint, some responses to PhilosophyTube, and then I went up to 2K, over 2K subscribers. And then it continued to climb quite fast, but for a while now, over half a year, maybe even not that far off an entire year ago, it's kind of just like maybe climbed 1,000, like from 5,000 to 6,000. And recently it's been climbing so slowly. And that's not for, like, I've had videos that have done quite well, but they just haven't led to a massive jump in subscribers. And my Patreon is basically just kind of fluctuating. Some months it will actually go down and I'll have fewer, and it kind of sucks because, well, I say it kind of, basically, when my channel was really growing, I introduced a new thing of like, I'm just going to shout out the new patrons for each month. And that was a very viable thing because there was a time when the new patrons for each month was like 20 names. And it was getting to a point where it would have been ridiculous. And I still consider it like a massive point of pride that there are channels out there of like 100,000 subscribers who shout out their patrons every single time and they have fewer patrons than me. Because it's clear that the people who like what I'm doing, they really like what I'm doing and they really stand by it. And I would imagine the majority of people who, cancel their subscriptions, it's just because they just can't afford it or whatever else. But ultimately, it's very clear that I still have a lot of very loyal fans. But the problem is that there's just clearly, I think, a limited number, like in the world. Like, I think it's reaching a point now where if every single person on the planet saw my videos, saw everything I do, I'd maybe gain like a couple of thousand subscribers. But like if I had a video that just went viral, I don't even know, like millions of views on a video, on a response video to ContraPoints or whatever else, I don't know that it would totally catapult my channel. I think that basically I've reached a ceiling, and that's fine. That is like totally fine, because it's the reality of the situation, and it would be pretty kind of hypocritical of me to as somebody who's constantly talking about the importance of just acknowledging reality. Obviously, usually I'm talking about acknowledging biological reality, but there are other realities to acknowledge too. And I think there's a reality which is worth acknowledging, which is that I just think that there isn't much more growth this channel can actually achieve. I think I've realized that now. And therefore, I need to do something else, and something which, because I've had other channels which have been like subsidiary channels. I've got KC2, which is just where I talk about like whatever. I have channels I do with other people, where I, again, just, talk about whatever. But what I actually need, I think, in order to feel fulfilled, doing this YouTube thing, being in a situation where, because the thing with YouTube is you do it because you're like, oh, I want to get to the next level, and that's like a goal, and that keeps you motivated. But I think that I need, therefore, something which I could expect to supersede this channel, to get more than 6K subscribers. And I'm thinking, well, I guess film reviews is a good option there. So that's point one, the channel is stagnating. Point two is that this channel is kind of insecure. It's talking about a controversial issue. I haven't really had any issues with YouTube. I'm hoping that will continue to be the case, but I am worried. It's something in the back of my mind. I'm like, tell you what, I've built up this 6K subscriber base. Like, this is a very big achievement as far as I'm concerned, but it's not great thinking, oh, that could very easily be taken down because right now I'm talking about really controversial topics. I would like to make it so I have a base of support on YouTube that is about a less controversial topic, such that if this channel ever, God forbid, did face issues with YouTube, I could still be like, hey, I've got my other things going on, and I could use a kind of existing platform which still has some subscribers, well, hopefully a good number of subscribers, and is not controversial and is not at any risk, to actually build up whatever else I might try to do. And I might try moving to another video streaming platform or doing whatever, who knows. But the point is, I would just feel much more at ease knowing that part of my YouTube content or my YouTube presence is based in something a little less controversial and likely to cause issues with YouTube. Now, the other thing is that I don't like just talking about this issue. It's a really interesting topic, and it's one which, I'm very happy about what I have achieved here. And I think about, and I've mentioned this before, but I think about the fact there are other people I know who in some ways have achieved more than me, in some ways are doing better off than me. They've got full-time jobs with really good salaries while I'm just kind of trying to do part-time freelance stuff to make ends meet. There are people who are doing much better than me in some ways. But then I think, but I've got a 6,000 people who are subscribed to me, probably easily more than 10,000 people who know my name. So there are the number of people who know me and know who I am and know what I talk about is, I think, easily in the quintuple digits. So that's a big achievement. But, and also I think it's a topic worth talking about. I think this is one of the major issues right now, and an issue which we're going to look back on and we're going to say, which side were you on? And I'm proud to say that I will have been on this side, and I'll have been like making this content, talking about this content. But at the same time, it kind of, I get these comments from people who will be like, oh, you're obsessed with this issue. And the thing is, I'm not. Like, this is not an issue which I just want to be the whole thing. And that's the whole reason why I started, for example, KC2, the channel where I just talk about other stuff rather than gender identity, because I don't want this to just be the only thing I talk about. But something happened recently which was very shocking. So I suppose I should say the video on the film review channel, which I would like you to check out and subscribe to, and help the algorithm and all that stuff. I don't think it matters what the video is about, because like I say, from your perspective as somebody who is gender critical and wants to help the gender critical movement, we need to be supporting anything that any gender critical person is doing to try and increase the kind of presence and the reach of gender critical content creators. But specifically what it's about is a rewrite of The Force Awakens, which actually I've already done a video on that on this channel, but I wasn't very happy with it. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it again and have another shot at it. So I was sat there kind of editing this video. And while I was editing the video, I was listening to stuff in the background. I was actually listening to other people talking about The Force Awakens. And I came across a video by a channel called The Closer Look. And it was all about the Star Wars sequels and how they were very bad. And I was listening, and eventually I suddenly noticed that he was talking about, the person who was making this video was talking about the response to the Star Wars sequels. And he mentioned the title of a video. And the title of the video was my video. And then I paused and I switched, and there it was, staring me in the face, my video. It was screenshotted, the thumbnail, the title, my channel name. It was actually at the time where I was just called King full stop, before I decided to add the critical. But it was there. And I was like, wow, that's my video. And the crazy thing is that video, which features my video, has 4.6 million views. Now, I want to stress, this was not a shout out or a response. Like, all the person was doing was just talking about, like, oh, here's how people have responded to The Force Awakens. And then they just listed a load of videos. But nonetheless, one of the videos they listed was mine. And it's kind of crazy for me to think. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. And first of all, part of me was almost thinking, it kind of feels like a sign. I know a lot of people probably don't believe in that sort of stuff, but just like the fact that I was sat there working on this video, of course, hoping this video will be successful, and then suddenly I hear one of my other videos being mentioned to an audience of 4.6 million people. But the other thing about it is I was thinking it's kind of nice knowing that a lot of people do just know me as the person who talks about this issue, and people who are critical of me think of me as like some horrible, obsessed bigot who just talks about this issue because I hate trans-identified people, and this is just an issue I just want to talk about it all the time because I just hate them so much and I just can't get out my hatred, so I just need to. And like, as you know, obviously I'm aware of the fact that, for example, none of my videos have anything like 100,000 views, but my debate with Vorsh has over 100,000 views, so that's 100,000 over Vorsh fans watching me talk. And of course, they all hate me. They all think I'm just the worst person ever. And I was thinking, you know what? It's kind of cool that actually, in some sense, in terms of like the fact that this video was mentioned to by name, the title of this video was mentioned to 4.6 million people. In some sense, my most successful video was a video just talking about Star Wars. And I thought to myself, isn't that just kind of sweet? There's something kind of comforting about knowing that no matter what else, you know, like people might hate me for what content I'm doing. I thought, like, actually, I like that idea that the only video I have, which has been mentioned by name to 4.6 million people, is a video talking about Star Wars. And that kind of reaffirmed why I would like to do this, why I would like it to be like, this is a thing I want to talk about. And I still want to talk about trans identity because I think it matters. And again, I will stress again, I am not ashamed. I do not think that I have made some kind of bad decision by choosing this to be the thing I talk about. But I also feel that it would be nice to have my YouTube presence on the whole seem a little bit less controversial. And that's one reason why I want to do this. Now, the final reason is that I would like it if I could do YouTube full time. And I cannot do YouTube full time right now with just this channel. In theory, I could. I mean, I've got 6K subscribers. If only like a quarter or a third of my subscribers gave $1 each on Patreon, then I could do this full time, because that would be $1,000 a month, over $1,000 a month. It would be like $2,000 a month. And that would, of course, translate to $24,000 a year. That's not a terrible salary. And I am not a money-motivated person. I'm motivated more by enjoying things and by feeling like I'm achieving something by what I'm doing. So as somebody who's not money-motivated, I would happily work to get just enough to get by, enough to be able to pay rent, enough to be able to buy food, just enough. That would be fine. And you know, again, I can say that all the time, and I do say it sometimes. Yeah, the fact that if every single person just gave a very tiny amount, that would be enough. But in reality, that's just not, I think, how human psychology works. Like, I think people just think, oh, it's just $1, it's not going to make a difference, or whatever else. Or maybe people genuinely can't even afford $1 a month, whatever else it is. But the point is, yeah, that's just the reality of the situation, and I accept that. So, of course, what I thought is, well, if I wanted to do YouTube full time, I guess I'd have to try to make it big as a film reviewer. And I think as a film reviewer, you can get to like 100, 200, 300, 400,000. And at that point, the possibility is that you could be doing it full time. There are plenty of full time film reviewers out there. So I'm like, that's what I would like to do. That's very much what I would like to do. And of course, the obvious benefit for being able to do YouTube full time is what it could mean for this channel. It would basically mean I'd be able to organize my time and just, make sure that I could come up with a schedule where it's like I can perfectly allocate all sorts of, different amounts of time and decide to give this channel as much time as I think it warrants to kind of keep up with my production schedule while also being able to do other things. I would basically be able to organize my time much more effectively. But, of course, there's the alternative, which is that what if this whole thing doesn't succeed? What if I can't do YouTube full time? Well, if I can't do that, then I've been trying to make it work with like freelance stuff, but I'm not getting enough money from that. It would be nice if I could find some kind of like part-time thing where it basically just like the amount I'm getting from Patreon perfectly fills in the gap, so I still have some time to still do YouTube. But there is, of course, the alternative, which is I just do full-time work. I decide to get a job full-time. And the issue, as far as I'm concerned with that, first of all, I just want to stress, like, I've had kind of moderate success with that. Like, I got to a point where there was a job which I was actually quite interested in, and I got to the final two, but I couldn't do it. Basically, they then decided to go with the other person. The interesting thing about it, though, is that was back in February, and I do think to myself, what if I had got that job? What would I have done? What would have happened with this channel? And you might think, well, it's only a full-time job. You still have time in the evenings. You still have time in the weekends. And that is true, and it's true for now. But there are kind of two issues. And I should say, yeah, so I'm hoping to consider getting it's kind of a matter of working out what I can even do. And just for the record, I want to say I don't consider myself above any kind of work. I'm not that kind of person. And, there are times that I've considered doing kind of blue-collar manual work, and I even applied for some, but it just didn't work out. And I think actually the funny thing is that far from considering myself above that kind of work, I think I'm actually not sufficiently qualified for a lot of it. I tried to be a painter because actually, believe it or not, I painted this whole house. This house I'm in right now, I painted it because I wasn't working. I was just doing YouTube, and my parents had bought a house and they'd had it fixed up, and they said, "Can you paint the house?" And I said, "Yes, I can." And I did. And that's always kind of a crazy thing for me to think about. It's like, I painted this house. The reason this house looks like a house, rather than just like bare plaster, is because I painted it. So that's something which I'm quite proud of. But yeah, I actually considered doing painting because I was like, well, I can just listen to kind of audio books and stuff. And that's actually what I did when I painted this house. I considered it like a perfectly fun thing to do because I would download lectures, audio books, podcasts, whatever else, and I would just listen to it while I was painting the house. And I was doing, as far as I'm concerned, what is the kind of dream for me, which is learning, well, not while earning, because like I said, I was just doing it because I didn't have a job. But obviously it would, yeah. Point is, just a long-winded way of saying that I don't consider myself above any kind of job. But yeah, basically, it seems like eventually I am going to get a full-time job. And the question then becomes, what would happen to this channel? And yeah, there are two issues. The first thing is that, okay, I can keep doing this channel now when I'm doing a full-time job, but what about when I have kids? What about when I'm at a point where, there's housework that needs doing? And obviously, I'm going to want downtime, but is that downtime going to be making YouTube videos? I'm not sure. If I'm working from 9 to 5 or even 9 to 6, as is sometimes the hours nowadays, it's going to be come home, have dinner. Am I going to want to sit down? Well, maybe, but then I'm also going to want to be able to spend time again. We're talking into the future, which I would like to be doing this into the future, but I can't do that if I've got kids and a wife. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to spend time with my family. And then on the weekends, am I going to do it? Well, sometimes, but other times I'm going to be like, hey, let's actually go somewhere. Let's go visit somebody. Let's go on a day trip. Let's do something in the weekend. So I can't be like, oh, the weekends are going to be allocated to making videos for this YouTube channel. And it could easily reach a point where it's just like one week I decide, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do anything for it. And then the next week I'm going to be like, oh, I feel like I'm too busy again. And you know what, I didn't upload last week, so it doesn't really matter, And eventually there's not going to be any precedent for me to upload videos regularly, so I'm just going to stop doing it. The other issue is, like I say, I'm not a very money motivated person, but if I wanted to feel fulfilled in my life and just have a regular job, I would have to be money motivated. I would have to be able to say to myself, well, the reason you're doing this and the reason this is worthwhile is because it's making you money. And at that point, if I were to reprogram my brain to be like, well, you're doing this to make money, I don't really see how I would then still be motivated to sit down and put work into making YouTube videos knowing it wasn't achieving anything. So as far as I'm concerned, it would just be so much better if I were able to do this full time. So as far as I'm concerned, this is kind of, again, I want to stress, I do not have any delusions about the fact that this is difficult, about the fact this is a shot in the dark. I'm not sat here like, I'm definitely going to be YouTube famous. I think it's quite likely that I won't. But I did think to myself, I want to give this a shot. I want to see if I just try to do this film review thing, can I actually get to the tens of thousands or even the hundreds of thousands of subscribers and start taking the possibility very seriously that I would be able to do YouTube full time, because that would be the dream. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about this main channel here? Would this channel suffer if I was doing the film review full time? And the first answer is definitely much less than it would suffer if I had to do what I'm currently looking at probably having to do now, which is get a full-time job. So in order to keep this channel alive, that's a reason why I want to do this film review thing. But the other thing is that I think I would still put a lot of effort into this channel, and I would still come back to it and basically do as much effort. And I am aware that when this video is up, I will have already missed Friday's upload, and I will possibly even be uploading this late on Sunday or even on Monday, when usually I would upload 5:30 Friday, 5:30 Sunday, and therefore I've maybe missed this. But the reason for that is because I really did, with this one particular video, which I've uploaded to my review channel, I wanted to really take it seriously and just like try to get it done. Because like I say, I mean, right now I'm sat here thinking, I don't know, like the future of my channel does depend on this video, I think, ultimately. If this, well, maybe I could, this video is a bit of a dud and I give it, I'm not going to give up immediately if this one video doesn't succeed. I'm probably going to try maybe like 5 videos for my review channel. And if all of those just completely flop, then I might give up and I might just say, okay, you know what? The only thing I need to think about is being entirely money motivated, entirely focusing on getting a full-time job, because that's the thing which matters most, because that's the thing which is going to allow me to live my life the way that I really need to be living it for myself. And that's going to be what would ultimately hurt this channel the most in the long term. Now, I'm going to be optimistic and I'm going to say, well, let's say this does succeed. Let's say that actually you guys, you go and you check out that video and you like it, you comment, you say it's great, you say, oh wow, this is the best rewrite of Star Wars I've ever seen, can't wait to see what you do more. Maybe you even share it. Like let's say you do your best and it really succeeds and it takes off, and suddenly I'm sat here and maybe, obviously not so quick, but maybe in 6 months time or something, I'm able to be like, hey guys, I am now actually making enough money from adverts, because I would be able to monetize film reviews because they would not be controversial. I can't monetize anything I do on this channel, and I do wonder how much money I'm missing out on the fact, based on the fact that I don't monetize anything. But yeah, basically, I am able to be like, hey, I'm able to do this full time. What would be the plan going forward for my YouTube presence? So yeah, I want to talk about that because like I say, this is being optimistic. And the first thing I want to say is that I want to move to Twitch. So what I've kind of been thinking about recently is that, and there's several reasons why, and I'm almost like, oh goodness me, the video's so long. No, I'll summarize. Okay, so basically, or like try and do it as quick as possible. So, reasons to go on Twitch. One, I think I like the idea. Like basically all I do already is basically just film a video where I pretty much talk to a camera with some notes, or I go off of a, like I'm responding to a video. So I want to do that. And basically in simple form, what I want to do is have 2 sessions on Twitch a week where I basically do exactly what I do on this channel, but on Twitch. Now, here's the big thing. I also want to actually double my output. So I want to basically make it, because one of the reasons for that is because sometimes I will see videos and I'll think I could respond to that, but it's not really enough to justify a whole response video. So instead, what I could do is get on Twitch and just like watch the video kind of like as a reaction, and it would be a lot more casual. I wouldn't necessarily expect to have as much to say, but anybody who wants to check it out could still check it out. Now, the other thing I would like to do is with the Twitch. So like that's like 2 sessions, which would be basically paralleling my current content output. So 2 response videos a week and 1 topical video is often what I do. But in this case, it would be, double that. So 4, but then obviously I would also do the interviews and things like that. So yeah, whatever. But also maybe doing other stuff as well. Like something I've really wanted to do is play the old Harry Potter games, which has become especially kind of topical with, like obviously we started off talking about J.K. Rowling. And I would like to do that. I'm not an epic gamer. I'm not anything close to it, but I would enjoy, I still like to play video games. I like to do things for fun sometimes. And, I just have a little relax where I don't have to make content all the time or whatever else, just relax, play a video game, whatever else. And yeah, so that would be a fun thing to do on stream. Just like, I think Twitch would be good because I think it would make things more casual. The other thing I want to do, and this is something which would be more dependent on, like, because I think the switching to Twitch thing, I'm probably going to do soon anyway. But the thing that I would love to be able to do is spend way more time behind the camera, or rather, sorry, way more time behind the scenes doing research, like studying and researching and things like that. Because that's something which a while ago, I said to myself, I'm only going to focus on stuff which actually results in content that can be shared and watched and stuff like that. And it's like at the end of the day, you can put 10 hours into researching a video, and then you produce the video and it gets, whatever views, or you can put 0 hours into researching a response video, and then you do the response video and you upload it and it gets loads of views. And it's like, look, we live in a cynical, we live in a society. And the reality is that a while ago I said to myself, I'm going to focus on what actually helps build up the channel. But at some point I want to transition away from that. I want to transition away from kind of like the cynical, just focusing on what, gets me more views, and move towards being able to just make the content I want to make, which would involve a whole lot more independent research, a whole lot more like kind of academic intellectual stuff. But the problem is, at what point, it's pretty clear at what point it would make sense for me to transition from getting views to making the content I want to make. And that is when I'm getting enough views that I can do what I'm doing full time. Because that's, of course, the ideal here. And I think that would make everything better. So yeah, I'm hoping to be able to move to Twitch. And I don't know, within maybe like 2 weeks, you should expect to see a thing where like the videos that get uploaded to my channel will be edits of Twitch streams. Another thing I really want to say, again, I wish I would have left myself more time, but I don't know, apparently there was a lot to say, is that obviously the videos that get uploaded will basically be edits of the Twitch stream. So I'll do a Twitch stream where I respond to a ContraPoints video or a PhilosophyTube video, and I'll probably interact with you guys, I'll interact with the chat, all of that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the video that gets uploaded to YouTube, it will probably be an edited version of that, where it's just, whatever else. And I did want to say that I will edit it myself, but I will say that in the absolute dream fantasy land, I could reach a point where I get so much traction and so much success on YouTube. I don't think this is likely to happen, but goodness me, would it be, I would be so happy if it did happen. This is, like I say, it's dream fantasy land, not very realistic, but a point where I could actually afford to hire an editor. Because with the editing stuff, I don't know, like when it comes, I'm not sure how great I am at it. I think you can maybe tell I'm a bit rambly, and perhaps I'm not harsh enough when it comes to the editing room. I leave too much in. So I would like to get to a point where I actually find an editor who makes, like, basically edits things so that they are to the preference of your guys' flow. Because I think maybe for me, I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But then you guys are like, oh no, you need to be more punch, punch, punch. And I think that's the kind of thing which could be solved in the edit. But I don't know if I've got the skill for it. So it would be really great if at some point I would be able to actually be like, hey, I do the research, I do the Twitch streams, but then once the Twitch streams are done, I say, okay, now I've got an editor who can go and like actually go through it and turn it into something that's more easily digestible for a YouTube channel. That would be the dream. But otherwise, I would just continue to do the kind of sloppy kind of editing where I leave in most of the rambling that you will be seeing right now, and I'm sure thoroughly enjoying. So that's it. Conclusion 1, check out the film review channel because yeah, like I say, I think it's good. 2, maybe I've even got a vlog channel coming from my fiance. Check that out when it happens. It's going to be great. 3, which is Twitch, moving to Twitch. All of these things I think are changes. They're changes which I am cautiously optimistic about, but we will have to see. And 4, and this is the main thing, I personally am not losing sight of the fact that this is about actually achieving some kind of success for the gender critical movement. Because at the end of the day, like I say, I'm now getting comments from people saying, why am I getting recommended this? People who are getting recommended my content, but they don't care about it. And now I'm thinking increasingly, okay, I'm a somewhat big voice on this platform. I'm, like quite a big gender critical personality on YouTube. I'm actually maybe even reaching the point where there's not even much further I can climb as a gender critical personality on YouTube. So how do I turn this into success? And what I've realized is the way you do that is you talk about something which people will find interesting, independent of your gender critical views, and then basically people will then engage with your gender critical views once they find out about them based on the fact they're already interested in who you are and the content you produce. And I think that is the success that we can have. And I think that would actually lead for a victory for the gender critical movement. I think that the victory for the gender critical movement will come when more people, when this argument becomes mainstream. And this argument isn't going to become mainstream, or I'm not helping to make this argument become mainstream, if I'm just sat here having this incredibly insular discussion where I'm just talking about this one specific topic, not really kind of expanding beyond that, and not making an effort to reach out. And obviously the thing is, I don't want to therefore just totally abandon the entire principle of this channel and just start talking about whatever. No, this channel obviously has a focus, but the question is therefore, how do I draw people in? And for me, yeah, the answer would be trying to do other stuff I find interesting. And for me, the thing that I find interesting is film reviews. Whatever it is for you, I think you should explore that. And if you are a aspiring gender critical content creator, my advice to you would maybe be try to work out what other content creator you want to be as well. And and I will again say, yeah, if you are somebody who is a gender critical content creator who is also doing other stuff and you're thinking, hey, if my whatever it is, if my cooking channel really took off, then yeah, maybe people would also have to kind of, by extension, find themselves engaging with my gender critical content as well, because, they see it around and they look at it. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll happily promote your cooking channel. So yeah, I think for me, this is about actually achieving something. And once more people talk about this, once this discussion becomes more mainstream, we'll win. Because that's the thing, like it's no shock like that the TRAs don't want these conversations to actually happen. And that's why that when somebody like J.K. Rowling or Graham Linehan comes out and talks about stuff, they get like shut down or like tried to cancel and things like that because they don't want this stuff to happen. But ultimately, if people, if influencers, if celebrities start actually talking about this stuff more openly and honestly, we'll win. And yeah, we're not going to win. I'm realistic. We're not going to win based on my 8-part response video to ContraPoints. We're going to win because of J.K. Rowling or a politician, somebody who is famous independent of their stance on trans identity, saying, oh yeah, the trans identity position is kind of nonsense. And yeah, so that's why I'm trying to be like, I'm looking at what actually will lead to success and saying that's what I want to do. So I hope you will help me do that. And I hope that actually success in that will lead ultimately to more success for this channel and for this channel doing more and achieving more. And again, I'm not delusional. I think it's very realistic that all of this stuff could flop, and we can enter the dark timeline where I realize the only way to go forward is just to get a full-time job. And, you know, maybe eventually I just reach a point where I'm just like, hey guys, sorry, I just can't actually dedicate time to this channel really at all. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Things can happen. Things can succeed. So hopefully this does. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you, like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. But more so do it on my second channel or my main channel, which kind of is my review channel, if you like. Do that because that's something important. And if you want to comment below and say what else you're doing and what things you think could work, then that would be awesome as well. Maybe even you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think like there's something else that could work to kind of like make the gender critical movement more successful. I'd be interested to hear that. But yeah, thank you for watching. And I'll just say, if you want to give on Patreon, that is really appreciated. Like I say, yeah, it's really cool. And I also still have PayPal and PayPal, which you can do. And I guess, yeah, hopefully if the Twitch stuff works, then Twitch will also be another way that you can help with financing what I'm doing. But yeah, thank you so much. And I'll just say thank you to my current patrons. In addition to the names scrolling past on your screen right now, I would like to give a special thanks to last month's patrons, one of whom does not want to be mentioned by name, but apart from that, Lemonade and Citrus. You're all very appreciated.